Some days, when you're working on Android development, everything goes right. Everything works, the code works fantastic, and you get done quickly. This video, however, covers what happens all of the other days. So usually what will happen is you'll have some error that you're trying to track down and trying to figure out. I have created a small program here which does more wrong than it does right. And we're going to track through how to find these bugs and fix most of them. We'll see how far we get. So again, I've purposely gone through and injected as many things as I could think of to go wrong to exemplify different error conditions. So first off, let's just try running it. So I'm going to go Control F11. I'm going to run this as an Android project, and of course it comes up and says, I can't run this, so your program contains errors. Please fix them before running your application. So let's start figuring out what's gone wrong. So the first thing you want to do is at the bottom of your screen, now I've hidden it, I'll bring it back up here, is you probably have these three different tabs amongst many others. So Console, Problems, and the LogCat. The LogCat's what's coming back from the Android emulator. We can't even compile, so it's not going to be the LogCat that tells us anything useful. The ones that are going to be useful are the Console, which gives us some information, plus the Problems list. So let me just stretch this out. Another source of information we want to look for is on the left-hand side. We want to check where we've got the X's. So we can see here the project, all gone wrong, has, it thinks, a problem. Under source, there's some sorts of problems. Let's expand that. So in my Java class, there's problems, plus in my resources. Now a general tip is always fix your resources first. Your Java compile version depends on a file that's going to come in here, which is the R file. It can't be created until all of your resources can be compiled. So the first thing you want to do is fix those resources. So let's start walking it through and seeing what went wrong. Well, what have I got here? Well, it's telling me that my activity main.xml, which is my layout, my main layout, has some problems and won't compile. I've got it open here on my screen. And what's it telling me? It says activity starting intent such and such all the way across. Warning, activity started, its current task is not brought to the front. That's kind of weird. It doesn't really tell me much. Oops, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong point. It doesn't tell me much when I was trying to run it. Down here we say errors in XML aborting build. Errors in XML aborting build. Okay, so we can guess there's some problem with my XML file. Well, let's try and track it down. Look at the problems list. So Eclipse currently thinks I've got 5 different problems here. The activity underscore main cannot be resolved. So let's try starting from the top down. I have here my r.layout.activity main. So well, I want to look at this and realize this is inside of my R class. So anytime I'm working on the R class, I'm working on this automatically generated file, which couldn't be generated because of my resource problems. So I really want to skip over the Java for the moment. Let me expand this. We can see here we've got a number of Java complaints, and here's one, XML. That's a resource. Let's fix it first. So I'll double click on it. Back to my layout. When something really goes wrong, it often helps to switch over to the XML view. So here I have my XML view. It was complaining error parsing XML mismatched tag on line 35. Or 33, pardon me. So it has put me here on, this should be line 35 approximately. And it tells me I've got some sort of mismatched tag. Well, let's expand this, give me a bit more room. And we can see what's going on. Now, I could trace this through very carefully, reading every line one at a time. Of course, that may work. Of course, in some other cases, you may not be able to pick up the error. What's interesting is it's telling me there's a problem down here on the last line. Mouse over it. Mismatched tag. Well, if I look at this tag, it's trying to close a relative layout. So all XML, it's an XML tag that's trying to close with the slash a relative layout. I can look up here, and here's my relative layout it's trying to close. Well, that looks okay. Tag name is specified OK. I open the tag here. I close the opening tag here. So that's one tag when it opens and then closes it. And then here's my ending tag down here. Well, if I've got some problem like this, it's not telling me a specific line there's a problem on. What's likely is that maybe I've got a structural problem in my XML. So here, for example, I've got an image button. I open it, and this is a self-closing tag. We can see here that the close is inside of the same opening bracket here. This opening bracket goes to there. Another way that this tag could have been written, if you're not used to XML, is I could have a open tag and then an individual close tag, so /ImageButton. So that's the identical way. This is a separate open and closing tag, or I could have made it self-closing. But let's check the rest. What have I got here? So here's my text view. It opens here, and then it self-closes there. Here's a text view. It opens here, and the tag closes here, but we're leaving the tag open. So effectively, I'll do this with a tab, we're showing that all of these are a subpart of this text view. Well, that's not what we wanted. We wanted all three things to be on their own level, so I just need to close the tag. So I'll put in the end closing tag there. Okay, so now we fix this. Now we're down to just some plain old problems. Let's look at the next thing we've got here in the resource file. Error. No resource found that matches the given name. Well, we're saying we want to look up a string, and the string name is message. Alright, well, let's look into that. So let me pull up my values, string.xml, and I'm going to pull it off to the side here, just so I can see both at once. So I'm trying to read in something called message. We note that there is no message here. Now, I might be able to Control-1 this, and it says, well, I can create the resource for you. So I clicked on that, and then I sort of got Eclipse to give me some suggestions, create the resource. So let's do that. I'll double click on that, and it takes me in here. It's created the appropriate structure, and let's say this is just some message. We'd put whatever text should go in there. So that's getting better. Now here we've got a warning on my image button. Well, you can ignore warnings. They're not going to cause compile errors, but they're a really good thing to keep in mind because they tell us you things you might have done wrong. So missing content description attribute on image. Okay, so this is just saying that if it can't put up the image, it wants some sort of description on it. I can Control-1, add a content description attribute if I like. Let me just fix the formatting. Content description and some image. We could make that a bit more clear. Now it still has a warning here. We're hard coding a string. It should be in the resource file. Okay, yes, it wants to move it to the resource, so I'm going to extract a string. I give it a name. Sure, some image. Let's call it some image description. And so now, some image description is over here, and I've got all that in there. I save the files, and I go back over here. It still has a warning. What's going on? Well, it hasn't correctly updated. For some reason, the lint tool that gave me this warning hasn't realized that my file has changed. So one trick is put a space in the file and then resave it. So just a minor editing format change, resave it, and now it's fixed. Okay, so that's good. We've now fixed that problem with our XML. Now we see that the R file has been generated. I can quickly look into it just to see that it's here. This is all the different R value or the resources that we can access. Now let's carry on. What have we got? We have some problems left in main activity. Let me move my XML here over to my other window. And what are we left with? Well, we can walk this through. I've got here, first error. We're trying to set the context. This is just the normal way that the program runs. And we've got a problem. It can't find the activity_main. Okay, well, let's check the spelling. Here we have activity_main.xml. We don't need the extensions. That looks all right. Let's pull up the R file and see what's going on. I'll split the windows here so we can keep it two up at once. We're looking for activity main, which should be under the layout. So here is the class drawable ID layout. Layout activity_main. That looks all right. If we can't think of what to do immediately, let's look at the rest of our file. Look at the other errors we've got. Well, here I've got a call to change button message. Where is that defined? Well, it isn't really defined, but I do have a function here called changeMessage. So that's probably what I wanted to call. So let's put in here changeButtonMessage. And indeed, that's what I was expecting. I wanted this to call down into here. Now, we can look at a couple other things. We note that it hasn't fixed my error yet. Why not? Well, I got a syntax error. Insert a close curly brace to complete the method body. Well, I open the method here, and I never close it. If I mouse over this, we can see, let's see if it does it for me. This particular open brace is closed all the way down here, meaning we've forgotten one. So I'm going to go Control 1. Oh, it doesn't actually have a suggestion here, but I know what to do. I need to close my method. So that's just a plain old Java error. Now we're left with this error here, plus we've got another one down here. It's claiming that it doesn't know this whole thing called r.id.button. Well, let's look up ID. Well, we have here an ID button. For some reason, it's not happy. So what I'll try and do is there's a couple tricks that I often use. So the first one is try a clean and rebuild. So project and then clean. This is good to do anytime you've got something that's wrong and you're not quite sure how to fix it. So I'll clean it, and it rebuilds everything, regenerates my R file. So it closed it because it was gone. Let me reopen it. And here's my brand new R file. It still has the button in it, but we're still not getting anywhere. So anytime you've got all of your R usage, here we've got one, and I got another one down here, anytime you've got errors on those, think, well, there's probably something going wrong with my R file. I can look at it, it's correct. So now what else could be the problem? Well, one problem that often creeps in, and it's kind of hard to find, I'll show you in the imports list here. In this code, I have imported Android.R. What is that? That is the built-in R file that comes with the Android development tools. Not my R file, which is the one over here, but the Android.R file. My R file is com.examples.allgotwrong.r. So let me comment that out. I'll save the file. And now this is back up and working. So let me show you how this can often happen. What can often happen is if I go back into my XML file, let me introduce some sort of error. So let's say, putting back the old one here, I've reintroduced an error into my XML. So if I were to delete this by, say, project clean, I've now cleaned my project, which deletes the generated files. It then tries and rebuilds them, but it cannot rebuild it because there's an error in my resources. So the R file could not be regenerated. If I went to my code and I said, oh, well, this isn't working, why not? R cannot be resolved to a variable. So if I go Control 1, as we love to do, it says, oh, well, would you like to import R from Android? I say, yeah, sure, that sounds like a great plan. And it seems to have helped because now it finds R. And it finds r.layout, but of course, this is not something that the Android or that Google is providing for us. So never import Android.R. So I'm going to delete those here from my import lists. Even though I've got a compile problem here, it says I don't know what R is, that simply means that it hasn't been able to generate the R file, which means you need to check your layout, your resources. So let me come back down here, and I'm going to reinsert that. Okay, so we're getting there. We now have no compile problems. It built. Let's run this. Control F11. We think we're good to go. Let's ship it. I currently have my previous demo up and running, so it'll close this and then relaunch it on the new one. Oh no. Now we've got a problem. We're not just having a compile problem, but now we're having a runtime error. So the application all gone wrong, such as this process, has stopped unexpectedly. Please try again. Well, if we try again, it's not going to help. So I'm going to come back in here, bring up these ones at the bottom, and now it's going to be useful to check out the LogCat. We check the problems. Of course, there's no real problems here, no compile problems, because we're able to build. I can check the console. The console doesn't tell me much because it simply ran it on the Android and it's fine. Here the LogCat comes into play. So I'm going to double click on it to maximize to the frame. Well, what happened? We triggered an exception. So let's look at the exception. I can scroll up all things here in red. Fatal exception in main. What happened? Unable to start the activity, such and such. performed launch activity, the thread, we got a problem launching the thread. All of this was from the Android. We can see that this isn't actually our code. This is Android.app.activity thread. We probably caused the problem, but it's kind of percolating up through different layers that we don't actually control. So Android, inside Java framework. Of course, we didn't write that either. com.android internal, we did not write. We're looking for anything that we wrote. Oh, here. com.example.all gone wrong. That's what we wrote. So what's the problem? Well, on line 20, we had some sort of problem caused by class exception in the ImageButton. Okay, so we have an ImageButton problem, and it was on line 20 of my file. So I can perhaps double-click that, and it takes me in here. Double-click on that to make it back. And here we have line 20, as we can see down here at the bottom, line 20 of my file. So what's wrong with this statement? Well, it compiled, so we've got past that hurdle. What else could have gone wrong? Well, I'm trying to find a button. It's r.id.button. And then I'm going to typecast it to a button, and I'm going to put it into a button. I'm naming here view. Well, the name, of course, doesn't matter for the variable. So there's something going wrong with this button. Let's check it out. Well, where do we declare this? Let's look for r.button, the button widget inside of my layout. Come back over here. Got a text view. I've got another text view. Oh, and here I have my button. So this is actually where I'm saying I'm going to create the ID for the button. I could look through this briefly to see what's going on. I'm saying where it's going to be placed inside of my relative layout, how it's going to be centered, drawable, the icon, and so forth. Well, the problem is I've got it declared as an image button, whereas over here I'm trying to typecast it to a button. And it turns out that an image button and a button are not related. They're both derived from the same location, but they're different. So here, this actually needs to be an image button. An image button. I'll save that. I've got a problem because it has not yet imported image.button. Or pardon me, image button. Now, I've got another compile problem here. The set text. Set text is undefined on the image button. Well, it's an image button, not a text button. So text is meaningless on it. So I'm just going to comment this out. We could make it change the image or something like that. At the moment, we're just trying to get it compiling and running. So I'll hit Control F11 and rerun my code. By rerunning it, it's going to close this application will stay launched, and now we see this one comes up. Fantastic. I click the button. Of course, I don't have anything coded yet in the callback. Let's code the callback. So if I want to set up the callback, I can say view.setOnClickListener. New, I want a new view.onClickListener. It creates the anonymous class for me. And then I can do something here. So let's make it, for example, just put out a cat message. So log, and we're going to say .i. We're going to print out a message here. This is the all gone wrong is my tag, and then a message inside button click. Rerun the application. Let me just stretch this out so we can actually see a bit more of what's going on. This is the previous instance, so it's going to probably have to kill it for us unless it loads. Oh, it loaded pretty quick. So here we have it inside my LogCat, the message that we put out. Okay. So you'll find at some points when you're running your application it may crash. So let's put in something that causes it to crash. Let's try this. Instead of passing it a valid string, I'm going to pass it null. It may be smart enough to handle that, but we'll see shortly. This is an application that's just running in the background. Here we have all gone wrong. I'll click on it, and in fact, it is smart enough to handle that. It was smarter than we were. Well, let's come up with another choice here. Let's in fact repeat the same thing we were doing before. It just happened to be an easy error that we can replicate. Let's call it bad object, just to keep it straight in our mind. So I'm just putting in a runtime error here. We don't want a compile time error, just because it'd be easy to find, just as much as our last ones were. Here the runtime error is going to show up when we click on the button. So I click on it, and then my application crashes. And that's kind of nice because now we can trace it through. We can try and figure out where it went wrong. So we can do the same sort of thing we did before, checking out all of this debug trace to figure out what happened. Not my code, all the way up. We can figure out where did it go wrong. So we're looking for com.example. Way up here at the top. And we can see here that the onClick, we triggered an exception, a class cast exception with an ImageButton. Oh, that's pretty descriptive. On line 30. So I'll double click on that. Ask me where I want to go. On line 30, there we go. So I've got my class cast exception that we saw. So I'll comment that out. Now there's one more thing I want to demonstrate, which is what happens if you put in a bad resource. So let's go back into here, and I'm going to rename this. Well, in fact, let's see if we can copy it over. So I will copy, and then I will paste, and it's going to give me a new name. Sure, I'll just take the copy of. Well, now we see all these things pop up here in the console. It's telling me invalid file name must contain only lowercase a through z, 0 through 9, underscore and dot. So here we've got a couple problems with this. So if I were trying to rebuild it now, so if I go Control F11, can't build because it contains errors. I might say project and then clean. So one of the first things I would do. And it comes up with all these errors here. Of course, now I've got problems in my Java file with the R class because it's not been rebuilt. Here, I'll click on my resource that's causing the problem, F2 to rename, and maybe I'll give us a new name. So launcher underscore copy, all lowercase. So an exception has been caught while processing the refactoring rename resource. Reason, problem encountered while moving resource. So that's kind of weird. It actually made a copy of it, but the original is sitting back here. So if I were to double click on it, let me just bring my editor back, my image viewer back into view here. I can see what the image looks like. There's one. Here's the original. Here's a copy. So it managed to copy it for me but left the old one. So I'm going to delete the previous one. I click on it and select delete. And now that's fixed. If I wanted to prove I can actually build the project, I can go here to project, clean that, and then it's going to regenerate the R file. Does it automatically for me. Now one other thing you may encounter now and then, and this will probably happen if you switch between different development systems or different versions of the Android tools you're targeting, is you may need to clean the project. So the last thing I can show you is you click on your project, you right click, and then down under the options for Android tools, which is just off the bottom of the screen unfortunately, there's an option here called Fix Project Properties. So Fix Project Properties. You click on that, and it will automatically go through and try and correct any project properties that are not applicable. Here I'm developing for Android 4.2, but if you switched it to a new system and tried to retarget it to say Android 3.2.2, you would have to do that. Okay, so that concludes the demo here. What I wanted to show is how we can correct errors in an XML file, how we can correct resource naming errors, and how we can rebuild and work with this R file, including working with our plain old Java here and resolving those sorts of conflicts. Thank you for watching.